So hello, everyone. My name is Hadabayo, and I'm excited to be here again. So this is the pre-event webinar series for Stream Park 2022, a groundbreaking event happening in Africa, right? Such as not been seen. That will be taking place in Botswana. It's all about a showcase of the future of Africa, where we're going to see young people, teenagers coming forth to showcase their innovations, things they have created, that has the power to support their society, to add value to the society, and even to the world at large. We're going to be seeing a lot of that in that event, right? So we've been running a lot of webinars, just to prepare the atmosphere for that event, and I'm excited that we're here again. And for today specifically, we are going to be looking at innovation-driven education, right? There's a wave of change in the African continent, and our education in Africa is taking a new face, it's taking a new turn. We are seeing a different kind of education, right? That's connected to STEM. Some people say STEAM, and then we have it as stream, however it appears in your quarters, but we know that there is a change. Right, this framework is changing what education looks like in the African continent, and this topic particularly today um, has been chosen, right, to connect the dots strongly between education and the economy that we are in today globally. So once again, my name is Adebayo, and I'll be the moderator in this webinar. Um, so before I bring on our speakers for today, I'd like to speak briefly about this topic, and then I'm excited that our speakers are here, and then we'll just begin to tie the whole thing together, right? So we understand that globally we are in an innovation-driven economy, right? The innovators control the market, right? So if you look at the biggest business brands globally, right, and what these guys are doing, right, these are innovations, right? So you are an innovator, you have the power to control how the market is flowing, and that's the truth, right? According to the World Bank, there are two forces that controls the labor market: automation and innovation, right? Automation is replacing the old jobs, innovation is bringing in entirely new jobs, right? But then, how do we in Africa, how do the coming generation in Africa, leverage on this capacity? How can we really raise kids who are going to be innovators, right? Who will have that capacity to have a strong place in the market, right? In their own future, today and also in their own future. How do we have that kind of education, right? So we know that today we need to have an innovation-driven education, right? And that's because we are globally in an innovation driven economy, right? And so that's why we're having this conversation. All right, so once again, I'm so excited that we are here and we're going to be having this conversation. Please, whatever you're watching from on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, please feel free to share your comment. We'd like to hear from you. Whatever it is to say, we'll pop it up on the screen. Please, we'd like to hear from you from everywhere. Thank you, everyone, once again. Thank you for joining. For those that are viewing right now, thank you for joining the session. Quick one, I need to move to my speakers for today. Okay, so first of all, uh, we have right here. We're so honored to have right here on the show with us, Stephen Selassie Asu. Please pardon me if I do not pronounce your name well. I'll get to learn that when you come on. He's the president of the Bureau for International Development, Action and Commerce, BIDEC, and also the general manager of the Young African Media Center, YAMC. Stephen, please confirm. Can you hear me?
You are loud and clear.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to tell our audience just a bit about you? I know they're excited to meet you.
I want to use the opportunity to thank you for having me on this platform. I am highly elated to be part of this discussion and having to know that we young people from across the continent have a voice that is being amplified by technology or digital innovation, such as social media today, to share our views across the continent is such a refreshing moment to be African. As you have rightly said, my name is Steven Selassie Isio. I'm from Ghana. But most of all, I'll say I'm a very proud African. I'm waiting for the day when we'll ask, "Who are you?" You say, "I'm an African," and you ask, "From which part of Africa you meant your country?" Um, I'm a very inspired personality in the area of media. I've, over the past 15 years, worked in the space of media communication and development communication in promoting the work of young people across the continent. Above all, I'm also very, very interested, or I've been working in the space of the sustainable development space since 2011. Um, I've been very dedicated in the space of environment, peace building among young people, and then it dovetailed into promoting of the sustainable development goals from 2015 all the way to 2020. Also, I've been in the space of entrepreneurship, and that's why I love today's discussion. From 2017 to 2018, I got involved in a number of innovative and entrepreneurship training programs that gave me the opportunity to work with young people, mentor young people, to ensure that they brought to bear their skills and their innovation into the business space. So this basically has given me the opportunity to be part of a number of networks like the Young African Leaders in Initiative, of which I'm a fellow. I also belong to the for the Alumelo Entrepreneurship Program by the Astute Businessman of the Alumelo. I also belong to the Young African Leaders Alliance Development Alliance, pardon me, Young Africa uh, Development Alliance (YALDA), which is based in South Africa, and I'm also part of, we call ourselves the Young Lions, the unashamedly ethical platform, a platform that inspires men and women in the area of business, leadership, governance to be ethical in their work. Um, as I said, also, I'm a very proud Ghanaian who has, over the past years, worked in the public sector. I've worked in the public sector for about 10 to 15 years in different offices. I worked as a librarian, assistant librarian at the point, and as a medicine medical technician at the point, serving my country. So, a long story short, it's a very happy moment for me to be here to discuss innovation-driven education, and I'm very sure when I'm given the opportunity, we're able to share more on what our thoughts are, on how we can develop our continent and be relevant to the rest of the world.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction, Stephen. That was amazing. Yeah, okay. So of course, just in a bit, I'm going to be coming back to Stephen, and then we'll get the conversation rolling. But then again, Agab and Norbert Katunyi. Again, pardon me if I don't pronounce your name well. Agab and Norbert Katunyi, who is a mechanical engineer at the Makerere University in Uganda. So I like the fact that today we're going from Ghana to Uganda. Last week we moved from, I think, from Rwanda to Kenya. Yeah, we moved around those two nations. And today I'm happy to be on this flight. That's interesting. Okay, so moving through Ghana and Uganda today. Agaba, Norbert, please confirm that you can hear me. Our viewers would like to meet you. Okay, 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 great. So yeah. So sorry. Pardon me. Do I call you Agaba or I call you Norbert? Which do you prefer? Okay, Agaba. All right, that's fine. So Agaba, can you just our audience would like to meet you. Can you just briefly introduce yourself? Uh, yes. So Agaba, I'm not sure we can hear you. Looks like your voice is so much on the low side. Okay, that's great. Yeah, 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 it's still quite on the low side. It's still quite on the low side. I don't know. Maybe you want to check your audio, or maybe it's still quite on the low side. Though it's rising, but it's quite on the low side. It's coming up. It's coming up. It's coming up. Yeah, I can hear you, but it's coming up. It's a bit better than what we had before.
Maybe you can adjust your volume on the phone. I think maybe that on the computer.
It's still almost the same. It's still almost the same.
You can log out, then you log in again.
Yeah, okay. So that's fine. So while I'm waiting to connect again with Agaba, so we'll just move on into today's conversation, talking about innovation-driven education. So let's bring it down to Africa. I love it when when Stephen said that he looks forward to a time where everyone is proud to first say I'm an African, and then before we now begin to talk about the countries we come from, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Uganda, Kenya, and the likes. You know, so talking about what our education system looks like today. Stephen, do you think there is any way, a connection between our current education system, and raising innovators? Right? From what you have seen in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, do you think there is really any connection between what our education system is offering and producing an innovator? Do you see any connection, or you see a disconnection? What do you think about that, Stephen?
Thank you very much for the question. I mean, when we when we go through the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, it gives us an overview of how education should have been over the past 5 years going into 2030. And it gives a number of targets. And one of the can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. I can hear you now. Very well.
Okay, pardon me, there was a little break. So the Sustainable Development Goals gives us an overview on some of the requirements of education. It looks forward to one of the targets, I think target 3 actually talks about access to affordable technical vocational education, which is innovative in essence. Then it talks about technology-based education in one of the other targets. Therefore, it means for us to really achieve sustainable development over the next decade, or in this decade of change or development, between now and 2030, we need to we have to involve innovative education or innovative strategies or innovative components into our education. In Africa today, we have a high number of unemployment, not because we don't have people who are educated, but because we have people who are educated with the system that was designed for 1945 or 1950s, or basically designed to answer the economic solutions of another part of the world. When we look critically at, I'll use Ghana as an example. I know it's the same. Look, Nigeria has one of the highest number of educated or tertiary educated people on the continent. Ghana is not exempted. We have a high number of people who graduate from the universities every year. In Ghana, we have more than 100. I stand to be corrected. As at 2012, we had 119 universities, including private universities in the country. So you can imagine 2022. And from these universities, even if you are graduating just about 500 every year, you can imagine the numbers of graduates who come from our tertiary institutions. Not to talk about the nurses training, the teacher trainings, and the other tertiary institutions. All these young people come out of school from basic, how they call it, from the second cycle institutions, which is the secondary schools, and from the tertiary institutions without the skills that answer our challenges. When you look at Africa, typically, we have challenges that need innovative skills to solve. We have issues with management of waste, especially waste, organic waste, and plastic waste. And this challenge is very synonymous with every African country. But we don't have people who are able to solve these challenges because we are not trained to be innovative enough to become waste management engineers to solve our. Then we come to infrastructure. When it comes to infrastructure, you and I will agree, my colleagues on the panel will agree that one of the differences, the major differences between any African country and any Western country is infrastructure. The buildings, the mode of transportation, the amusement parks, the facilities that give people livelihood, our educational institutions where we shop, our markets, all this infrastructure that the West has provided for citizens places a major difference between us. When you land in America, when you land in the United Kingdom today, when you land in France, the major difference you see between Ghana or Kenya or Tanzania is infrastructure. Unfortunately, how many of these graduates who come from our universities and from our secondary schools know how to build the needed infrastructure for our continent? So this deficiency, which we are all aware of, makes it very essential for us to begin to shift away from, I call it the chew and pour exam education, where we are just stereotyped to just learn for our coming exams, you pass, then go to the next level, you pass, you get the highest degree, you have distinction, and you cannot solve any national problem. We need to move away from that. This, it will involve the contributions, of course. I mean, there's no African problem that does not come to our governments. Our governments making the right policies and building the right infrastructure for this kind of education. Then civic society, which involves you and I, where we young people start, which I love about this platform. Discussions like this are actually part of the efforts to drive our education to be innovative. Then we could also, in our own way, begin to volunteer. If I'm an engineer, we want need to get young people to come from through the various educational levels to become engineers to solve our problems. With the innovative engineering ideas or strategies I've learned at my PhD level, we could have civil society organizations, community-based organizations, where we begin to support young people who have the skill to get access to the necessary education, or begin to imbibe some of these basic innovative strategies into our young people in our communities. Another area I see as being able to foster this innovative driven education will be in the area of collaboration. What we are doing here is yet another example of how we can collaborate to redesign our educational curriculum to answer today's needs of technology in our countries across the continent. Through we had a discussion in South Africa between myself, Amos, and some other colleagues. One of the discussions was on how can we foster a strong movement of young people across the continent who are not just a group of complainers, but a group of change makers, where we support change in every country that we think there must be change that is needed immediately. Can we come together and say, okay, in Ghana, for example, the government says there should be free senior high school education, but we want to see free senior high school education with innovation, where every high school student leaves school with a skill that is pertinent to our development demands or technological demands today, where we begin to form pressure groups where we engage with government on a dialogue based, dialogue based, my emphasis on dialogue based with timelines and deadlines, where if what we demand is not done, we use every means possible to put pressure on this government to implement the policies we need to see. Because we have other speakers, I will leave my thoughts here. But before I go, I also believe the media is a tool to achieve this. When we do all we are doing without using media, we will not be able to carry our information to the people, the stakeholders we want to implement these changes. Therefore, the need for using media of every form, radio, television, print, of course, today's innovative way of media, social media or digital media will be relevant. And I'm very proud to say that I'm very, very happy over the past year to be part of those on the continent who are driving the use of digital media to solve or to drive home our communication, both to promote our work at the same time to put pressure on policymakers to do what is necessary for Africa to be where it's supposed to be. Thank you very much, and I'm hoping to add more when I'm given the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. So I so much love the fact that you have just taken us on a journey. You have mentioned um, that there's a dire need for us to at school level from K to 12 down to university level to begin to look more deeply, right? To begin to look more deeply into what's happening in the society, right? You have shown us that school should no longer be just an independent institution that just exists for itself, right? That school has to really look deeply into the society and then figure out the needs, figure out the problems, figure out the challenges, and then convert these things right into a curriculum, convert these things into a focus, convert these things into what is being worked upon, right, in the walls of the classroom, right, so that these kids are able to practically build the capacity, the potential to really address some of these problems the way they are practically, so that really from time to time, right, we are raising and breeding young people who have the capacity, who are familiar with the problems in the society, who are not only
Sure.
familiar with just problems in the textbook and all of that, but who are familiar with the problems in the society, beyond the paper problems, and then who have built the capacity, the confidence, and everything needed to begin to address the problems. It's so exciting that you have taken us on that journey. And powerfully, again, you mentioned lastly that media is the tool. Media is a tool. That's a powerful one. That's a powerful one. That's a powerful one. One thing I've seen from saying media is a tool is the fact that there are so many things happening in Africa today, right? That our media is not talking about. That our media is talking about. Education is changing in Africa, but I see that even on our TV stations and all of that, it's not being propagated largely. Right? We need to have it more and more and more and more and more, so that even parents can also be aware about these changes happening, and parents can also be educated, and parents can also begin to seek for this kind of education for their kids, right? Because we see that our parents don't even know what's happening; they're out of the loop. They just want their kids to go to school and come back home to do what? Right? This is a time where parents still have to rise to the occasion and say, no more, no more, no more. We want a different kind of education for our kids. But media is going to be that tool that will really make that happen. Thank you so much for sharing a whole lot of that with us. That was so awesome. Thank you so much once again, Stephen. Um, okay, so let me see if I'm able to reach onto Agaba this time. But then, please, our viewers on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, please feel free to share your thoughts. To me, I saw what you said earlier, and that's what we're talking about. About the curriculum. Because yeah, that's where it is about curriculum, about really addressing our curriculum, right? Addressing, being intentional about what we call our curriculum today in Africa. Thank you, Chief, for mentioning that. The conversation is still um, is getting hot. By the way, it's getting interesting. So let me see if I can reach Agaba right now. Agaba, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Probably, can you hear me? Can you hear me
Um,
now?
your voice is still faint. It's still quite faint.
Let me work it out in just 1 minute. 1 minute. Let me work it out. Let me work it out in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's cool. I'll come back in 1 minute then. I'll come back in 1 minute then. I'll come back in 1 minute. Thank you so much. All right. So yeah, so was here. I think it's quite important to kind of stress those points that Stephen has mentioned. And if you're listening to us, if you're an educator, if you're listening to us, if you're a school leader, this is a huge responsibility. We know that the salvation of our continent is in the classrooms, is in the schools, right? We know when Nelson Mandela said, education is the greatest weapon we can use to change the world, right? Maybe the kind of education Nelson Mandela was talking about is probably not what we have subscribed to as a continent, right? Maybe we need to look deeply because I know that the kind of education that Nelson Mandela was talking about is what we're discussing right now. It's an innovation driven education. It's the kind of education that focuses on connecting the society, right, with the school. Right, we have seen a huge disconnect between the society, and in fact, school doesn't know anything about what is happening in the society. School doesn't know anything about how the society is evolving. School doesn't know anything about what research is saying about how, as a continent in Africa, even the world globally is evolving and changing. And then I ask myself, how can the educators really create learning experiences, right, that will help this coming generation to build the capacity required to solve the problems in the society of today. And that's why I like to always see educators as learning designers. I tell educators, don't just see yourself as an educator, you are a learning designer, right? You are designing learning experiences. And so you need to understand the experience in the society, right? In the African society, in the global society, you need to understand this so well, so well, right? And be able to design experiences right from your own niche, right, to expose your learners to these experiences and give them a first-hand interaction with these things that are happening, right, so that they can be familiar. Because if they are the leaders of tomorrow, right, how can they solve the problems of tomorrow if they are not familiar with the problems of today? Right? If we keep showing them the textbooks and those materials, we are only connecting them with the past. We need to connect them with today so that they can build the capacity to conquer tomorrow. Right? This has become what education is looking like today in Africa. This is happening in Ghana. This is happening in Nigeria. It's happening everywhere, but it's happening in a little bit. And like Stephen said, media has to now play a critical role in getting people more and more and more and more aware about what is happening here. Okay, so I want to move again to Agaba, but I think it's probably not here. So I'll just move on again to Stephen. Stephen, thank you so much. Thank you for taking us, on that role. I haven't stressed the fact that there's a disconnection, and we need to really review what we're doing, right? In the system. So now, when we talk about practical steps that that we need to take, practical steps we need to take, in beginning to achieve this innovation-driven education, right? Can you just tell us one, two practical steps that you think today, as an education community in Africa, we need to take to ensure that gradually, we are reaching that kind of education that is innovation-driven. Over to you, Stephen. Stephen.
One of the practical steps that comes to mind is with teacher education, or the way we teach in our schools. While we wait for government to come with the policies, I believe that especially young people who are in the teaching field have a big role to play. For example, in Ghana, there's this number of provisions I've observed where some of the teachers go out of their usual framework of teaching to use different ways to teach people. I've realized I monitored very much interest as a teacher who went viral on BBC and CNN for using dancing to teach in school. So because he uses dancing, which is one of the major trends because of how Afro beats is shaking the world, it captures and encapsulates the student's attention. Then after that, is able to tell them whatever they want to hear. I also believe that we can now begin to shift towards bringing some of the innovative ways that problems can be solved into our curriculum as either curricular activities or extracurricular activity. For example, how to recycle, how to start the processes of recycling of plastic can be brought. This is our basic solutions. It can be brought into school where we are taught how to separate waste, on how to separate waste from innovative ways of actually carrying this waste to some of the recycling plants as part of our extracurricular activities. Imagine if our schools, the number of basic and secondary and tertiary institutions in our countries begin to separate waste and use it as an extra means of making money by either getting the recycling services, waste management services to come for it at a fee, or they take it to them at a fee. That can give the schools even extra money. Indirectly, we have been educating our young people on the various processes of recycling. And then we could smuggle in some of the strategies or some of the ways of recycling of waste. For example, waste to energy or plastic to energy, plastic into building materials, recycling plastic back into other plastic or polythene related materials. This way we could innovate. I also believe that take for example, we seems to relegate technical and vocational education to the background. Last week I had the opportunity of visiting, actually this week, I had the opportunity of visiting the Design and Technology Institute here based in Ghana, which has brought innovation into technical and vocational education. So you realize that usually the technical and vocational education you have is maybe they take people to school, they learn carpentry, they take people to school, they learn welding. But now this school has brought in a different strategy. They brought in technology into this. They brought in design rethinking. So if you are a welder, can you weld for us a beautiful design that will help us to design our walls without painting it? They brought in, instead of waiting for a sculptor to come and carve a wood, can you use metals to sculpture beautiful items like animals, like designs, to design our landscape of schools, landscape of institutions, landscape of our malls and stuff like that. So this for me was mega, and I was like, Can we have this kind of schools in all regions in Ghana and probably outside the country and across the continent, where we see young people, because we are craving for development. In Ghana, for example, we have the petroleum industry is booming. Unfortunately, the engineers, the human resource that work in that industry are predominantly foreigners. They are from the West. You see a lot of white folks working over there. And yet still we want to benefit from the petroleum industry. It's not going to happen, because our education teaches us just to become administrators, finance people, and it does not encourage any form of technical and vocational education. I think that practically what we can do is, as young people, we need to engage our policymakers right now. Form pressure groups, have meetings with our parliamentarians, because the parliament makes these changes. Can we meet our parliamentarians, especially in Ghana? I know we have educational subcommittees and we have subcommittees for every issue. So can we engage the educational subcommittee? Because if we just talk and don't take any practical actions, that is going to happen. Let's meet with them, let's ask them questions and make our inputs to these people. It is practical. These people are always available. If you book appointment, you can meet them. We have engagement, they ask them questions and put together documents and memos, presentations to them, and tell them this is what young people of Ghana or Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda want to see. Give them timelines. Says, March, this is what we are expecting to see in our policies. We will be back in December to follow up on what we said on October. If we don't see anything, this is what we are going to do. We are going to now go to the media to state that you are not doing anything, or we'll go to the media to state some of the challenges you are facing in driving these policies into parliament to become legislative instruments that will affect our education. So then we see that our words and our ideas are not just on the street, are not just on social media, but they are actually making step-by-step progress in our policies that dovetail into our curriculum. We need to make these things happen. For me, these are some of my heartfelt, passionate suggestions to us as young Africans. We have the power, we have the ability to make these things happen. We just need to know how. And one of them is to engage policymakers one-on-one, sit with the Minister of Education. Don't go as one man, because it's not going to work. We need to work as pressure groups. We need to work as movements, as networks, to engage these people so that we can put pressure on them, positive pressure on them, to make policies that affect the change of our curriculum. We are tired of just raising people who need to go to Europe before they become relevant, or go to the US before become relevant. And most of the time, actually, we don't actually do anything with the education that we have been trained to. You see somebody, he's an accountant and he's into fish farming. Somebody has trained as a business administrator, and he cannot even manage any business. He's not in the business field. He's either looking for employment in the telecom industry, or wants to go into aviation. So it's time we young people begin to enforce policy change and curriculum restructuring.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Stephen, from for this perspective of for this insight. This is huge. Um, you know, um, in the year 2020 in Nigeria, there was this NSAS protest, the special anti-robbery squad, the police, and all of that. Yeah, young people rose to the occasion to say, no, we don't want these guys anymore. When you said that we have the power, that word really resonated, right? That as young people, we have the power to initiate the change that we want. And today, SARS has been banned. SARS has been banned in the Nigerian context, and of course, I know that that's just an example. That's an evidence to what young people can achieve by the time we decide to rise up, ready to do. Thank you so much, Stephen, for taking us in that direction. That's so deep. That's so deep and so insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay. Quickly. I know I have Amos. Can you hear me? Amos, confirm if you can hear me. I'm going to move to Agaba
Yes,
just
yes.
a moment.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So okay, great. So Amos, what do you think about this conversation?
Can you hear me?
I
Very
think
well,
you
I
need to
can.
give Agam a chance because of his network.
All right, all right. So tell me, Amos, what do you think about this conversation?
Okay, I think this conversation is very good, and I like the fact that we are coming as young people. You can see the people who are talking in this platform are very young, and I think one of the things that we need to do is to ensure that we work together as young people, and just to ensure that we collaborate, as my good friend from Ghana, Stephen, has said. The problem we have in Africa and especially in my country is that innovation is not valued so much, and we have a lot of young people doing amazing things in this continent. So it's high time we begin to share such stories, and it's high time we begin to work together, just as my brother said, and he's doing quite good work in terms of sharing African stories. And I think this conversation is going to give us a way forward on how we can move on and even do better as we make our continent better.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Amos. Powerful collaboration, collaboration. We now need to harness all of this energy. We now need to bring in synergy and put all of this together. All right, and make this wave quite stronger. Okay, so let me move on right now to Agaba. Agaba, confirm if you can hear me. Let me see if of course these things happen sometimes. Tech can be very funny sometimes, but it's okay, it's fine. Let's see if we can bring you on board. Um, or if not, we might have to just continue. So Agaba, give it a shot and let's see if you can, if we'll be able to hear you right now. Okay, it shows that you are muted. I think you have to. Okay.
Yes.
Aha, awesome, awesome. I can hear you right well. I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's fine. So Agaba, you can see what this conversation is all about. So, what do you
Yes.
think?
Yes.
What do you think about what do you think about the conversation, Agaba?
Me, I can try to give it a historical perspective. Remember, during the struggle for our independence in 1960s, the clarion call of the leaders of the time was we should give a pride of praise to education that is innovative. You could hear Nkrumah talking about the University of Nkrumah of Technology and Science. You could hear him talk about the university at Cape Town, talk about in East Africa the University of Makerere for doctors, the University of Kenya for engineers, and Dar es Salaam for lawyers and political activists. But we have wandered away from the essence of our education that was supposed to be innovative. Now it brings to me to how the governments do fund the universities or the schools that are for innovative ideas. They don't give premium to universities for the money to use in innovation and invention. Majorly, like in a Lagos Plan of Action, it was passed that every African country would contribute 1% of their GDP to research and development in every university. But none of the countries have committed that to it fund research and development. So, which begs the question that what are we studying at the university? Once we don't have research and development, our universities become glorified high schools obsessed with degrees. Because, for example, here, the governments can literally quick to respond the so-called primary needs or essentials. They can fund primary education, they can fund health facilities, they can fund industrial development, but they see research and development as universities as something that is luxurious. And they forget what they don't see, that once you invest in research and development at universities, then there would be problems that you are succumbing to would be solved by them. Once you fund them, they will produce. Once they produce, they will generate ideas. And so when you have a problem in public health sector, the doctors will come and tell you this is the right thing to do. Us in Uganda, we are surfacing Ebola. We could hear the voices of doctors who are researching, but they are not funded. If it is in the area of doctors, the doctors will come and tell us what to do. If it comes to construction of roads, the engineers will tell us thus far we have reached in research and development. So once you find a government that does not prioritize research and development, then it is endangered. Reason is from the start up the end, what drives the country is research and development. For example, I was very pissed off during COVID-19, where we are crying for Johnson and Johnson, where we are crying for Sinovac. There was no research at all, and we didn't even embrace the drug that was produced in Madagascar. So now compare with other countries that invest in research and development. They are the ones making drugs for us. So the clarion call to the government is to fund the universities, and in research and development, we shall encounter innovation and invention. Once we have limited fund, because in Africa we have no shortages of innovation. The innovations are there, but people to support them are the ones lacking. So if we could have the government tasked to put money in innovation and innovation, then we could be making a good point. So this policy of detaching universities from the society has caused us that harm, because as we have taken universities as for academia and nothing they contribute. Almost I thought that the professors would be talking during COVID-19 and Ebola, but no one, they were all silenced. No one is talking. So which begs the question that then what are we studying? So those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Agaba, for sharing that perspective. Such a great one, that you are bringing research and development to this context. We know of a truth that in the Western world, the economies that are thriving strongly are the ones that have heavily invested in research and development. I once listened to a podcast where the president of Israel, the president of Rwanda, and I think some other few nations, Israel has this interest in Rwanda because of Rwanda's state for innovation and a lot of that. I could hear a number of partnership and support in that conversation, and I think right now the World Economic Forum has a center, something like that, in Rwanda, so to say, and they're also interested in other African countries who are placing priority on innovation and who are ready to really plug into research and development. And of a truth, like you said, Agaba, R&D plays a critical role in this matter. Plays a critical role, and government has to really do a lot of funding to ensure that these things are taken care of, that the real innovations that are even obtainable, as of now, are being elevated. Right? Media is doing it. Government are also funding these innovations to ensure that they are able to really solve our local problems. Right? Before our Western friends come to steal these guys away, because we've seen a whole lot of that, and they come to give young Africans the impression that, hey, we have a better plan for you. We have a better. Africa needs to show these young people. Africa needs to show us that our government needs to show us that they have a great plan for us, so that we can be excited and interested enough in staying. That really has to be the reality. Thank you so much, Agaba, for taking us in that direction, and that's so amazing. If we put all of this conversion in perspective, right, we are seeing how media plays a crucial role. We are seeing how we need to review our curriculum and what is happening in our classes. We are seeing how we need to be more intentional about understanding the context of today, right, and bringing today into the classroom, right, in terms of the problems, the challenges, and the whole thing, right. Our learners today need to be very familiar and aware about what's going on in society. We are seeing the role that social participation takes, right? Young people rising up to the occasion and engaging our leaders and saying we need to have a conversation. We want to have a conversation. We have seen that that's going to play a critical role. We're seeing again too that R&D plays a crucial role in this matter. The government needs to invest largely in research and development in ensuring that what our education looks like is really agile enough, to really address what's happening. And what I've seen in this conversation that what we do in the university has to be more connected with our community, with our economy on a big deal, and not just the academics and the core things that are being done right there. We are seeing that right here, funding plays a crucial role, and these are a whole lot of things, right, that practically we need to engage, as we look forward to a better continent, as we look forward to a greater Africa. Okay, we're coming gradually to the end of this conversation, and then I'm happy to go back again to Stephen. I'm excited. So Stephen, you have shown us what you think the problem, and you have also mentioned one or two practical steps, and then lastly, you mentioned that media is a tool. Do you want to stress further on the media part of this thing, and the role that media plays in really helping us, deepen an innovation, driven kind of education? Over to you, Stephen.
Pardon me, I missed part of the question, so because I was not hearing clearly. If you could come again,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to come again. The last thing, the last point you mentioned was, the fact that media is going to be a great tool. I was saying that, could you please, stress further on that, how media is going to help us harness, this is we're talking together, and also help us deepen, the innovation kind of education that we are looking forward to.
Okay. During the COVID-19 pandemic era, interestingly, we have AD and BC, so now we have the AC after COVID. So during
Yeah.
the we noticed something very phenomenal. Because there were lockdowns, most students, schools were closed, most students were at home. So then we had to depend on another strategy to reach out to our students. And one of it was using the tool of media, or media as a tool. So then we saw a lot of innovation around schools that were using social media as a platform to educate the students. We also saw the advent of apps being developed, software that made websites classrooms. And then, of course, we also saw some media houses innovating by creating classroom sections on their televisions and on their radio platforms. So I believe this is one tool that we could embark on. We could embark on using programming as one of the means by which we could drive innovative education. So instead of waiting for, of course, which is necessary, the Gartner framework, which is a slow ship, before it turns its wheel, because a huge ship, it turns so slowly. We could use social media and mass media as a tool to begin to bring some of this curriculum to the young people directly, especially social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, where we bring practical experts, people who have gone through these, who are actually living the life of innovative, who have been innovatively educated, who are actually working in the space of innovation, whether in agriculture, education, in health, in renewable energy, in waste management, in infrastructure, and so on and so forth. When we begin to feature some of these personalities to educate our young people with simple, do it by your own or do it on yourself steps, how to create that, how to create this, how to create that, to solve problems on our own, in our small communities. I believe that's one way we could self-educate ourselves on these social media platforms and probably on the mass media platform. For the mass communication or media platforms, usually the issue is, they are driven, they are money driven. They need to make money to pay for the services of the personalities, the media personalities they have on their platform. So they will prefer to show telenovelas than to show some of these things. So it needs content creators in the space who want to create some of these platforms have to be very creative also to ensure that these programs are, for example, a 30 minutes encounter with experts who teach us how to be innovative in our own way, could be specially crafted and designed and put on TV where we get sponsors so that the sponsors pay for the space and we show it on mainstream TV. But I tell you, social media is the most powerful tool now, and I think it's the easiest way to go. Also, we could use media as another form of tool. Can we begin to highlight the successes of some of our young Africans who are already being innovative? Using that as a benchmark to inspire the upcoming generation to be innovative. We show a young man who is using technology to farm, where he's not going the traditional way like our fathers and our grandpas and our grandmas used to do. And he's making money just by using his mobile phone to become a farmer, and he's farming on a large scale in many communities. Can we profile people like that? Can we profile that young man who, through his engineering skills, was able to design a locally powered, solar powered water plant, which is taking care of the water challenges of his community somewhere in a village in Togo? Can we highlight the stories of these people so that by telling the stories of our already happening innovation that can inspire a generation as well? Another way we could use media as a tool, as I said earlier, will be to engage our policymakers and stakeholders of the educational of the education stratosphere in dialogues. So town hall sections where we talk about our education. We want to see technical, vocational, technology-based education. So we engage the Minister of Education in a town hall section, which is live on traditional media or social media, where we put to them questions and put to them timelines. After which, we don't see what we want to see, we will come back on that platform. Or when we see what we want to see, we come and commend them and share the way forward and share the way we could remove those bottlenecks. I believe that by using this, we'll be able to drive home the change we want to see. And there was one key point. I love the point of the research and development aspect. But an interesting thing is when you go to these universities, you'll be shocked to see the amount of research that is on the desks, on the shelves that are gathering moss and dust. It's unfortunate. So we need to put pressure on our educational institutions and educational stakeholders to make changes. And there's one point I would like to make before I go off, even though you asked me to talk about media, it has to be with the parent-teacher associations and alumni groups. I believe that this group of people are so powerful and need to begin to empower them. Our alumni groups have so much power because if I've gone to Makerere University, for example, and we, the old students of that university or the University of Ghana, come up and say, we want to see this happen in our curriculum, it's going to happen because we actually contribute to some of the developmental, the development of the school. So we have a lot of power as alumni of the various schools. Then the parent-teacher associations. If you are parent of the school that does not implement or you don't see anything innovation in your curriculum, you can make a voice. You can mobilize some of the other parents, mobilize some of the parents to address the issue with teachers, and I believe that can go a long way to make it, especially in the private schools. That can go a long way to make the change we want to see in our educational systems. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Stephen, for capping it that way. Absolutely, you've added a number of points to again that are really powerful that we need to look at even as we move forward. So again, to all our viewers, you're viewing on YouTube, you're viewing on LinkedIn, you're viewing on Facebook. This is time for action. This is time for us to make a lot of moves, right? Every one of us have to do something now. Africa is the youngest continent. Other continents will keep coming for us. They will keep coming. They will keep coming. And this is the opportunity we have as a continent to save ourselves from that talent loss. All right. We've been experiencing a huge talent loss. We don't want to keep experiencing it because of what the landscape looks like. And that means that we need to reframe our education and make it such as we have discussed right on this conversation. If you joined late, you can go through the recording again and and grab every virtue in this conversation. All right. So again, this is about Stream Park, right? Just like Stephen has practically said, this is about um, um, an avenue, created for young people to showcase their innovations and what they are doing, right? So when we're talking about these things, it's already happening in Africa, right? But now media is going to amplify it, right? So Stream Park is an event happening in Botswana, and in that event we have a lot of young people. The first 2 days, students in schools who are going to be coming out to showcase the events they have been, innovations they have been working on, right? You're going to witness first-hand solutions to real problems that they're going to be sharing and exhibiting in that event. All right. If you're an educator, you don't want to miss this event. Right. The last 2 days of the event has been packaged to be a symposium for educators where you're going to learn how to teach innovatively, right? You're going to learn how to raise problem solvers in your classrooms. You are going to learn how to raise innovators in your classroom. No educator in Africa should miss this conference, should miss Stream Park 2022, right? You're going to learn practically what it takes, right, to implement Stream, in your various settings. You're going to learn what education looks like today, and how you can be a learning designer that will create that kind of education that will truly raise problem solvers and innovators in your individual space. All right. We invite you to register. Please follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, and do register for the event. As the links shows on our various platforms. We have the links there on signing up and registering. Please do so, and then we look forward to receiving you in the stream palm. Come come November 1st to the 4th of November. Right. So again, if you missed anything in this event, feel free to to watch again. We're going to be coming with more and more webinars, as we get set for the main event. We are so excited. Thank you to everyone that has joined. Thank you for everyone that has shared one or two things. Thank you to all our speakers. Thank you so much, Stephen. For sharing your time with us. We are so grateful. Thank you so much, Agaba. Sorry about the network issues. But but having you on the show has been a great addition. Thank you so much, Agaba, for sharing those powerful insights with us. And thank you so much, everyone that has joined. Again, we'll see very soon in the next webinar. And this is why I call it a day. Bye and bye and bye and bye, everyone. Goodbye for now.